Welcome to Republican Roundtable. I'm Max Reimer. As many of you know, we broadcast from Bloomington, and we have a lot of elections that are coming up both in August and November. And it's easy to get wrapped up in some of the bigger ticket elections, but what we have to pay attention to is also the fact that we have some state house races coming up. Here in Bloomington, in District 50, Senate District 50, we have two candidates in today that are running for State House. We have Kirsten Johnson, who will be my future representative in 50A, and then Chad Anderson, who is running for the seat in 50B.
Correct.
Thank you guys for joining us on the Republican Roundtable today.
Thanks for having us. Yeah.
So I like to kind of kick things off with who we are as candidates and what our backgrounds are. And Kirsten, I'd like to start with you. You've done a lot in your life. Who are you and why are you running for this seat? Why now?
My name is Kirsten Johnson, and I am running for the district where I grew up. So this is where my mom's house is still in my district, and she actually door knocked with me along my paper route that I had when I delivered Sun Current.
Oh.
This district also has my first waitressing job. I worked at the Lindale Perkins over on 82nd across from Cub. This district has my best friends lived here. I have, I see people all over the place who knew me growing up and they're rooting for me. So I know this district so well and I really love it. It really made me who I am. So right after I graduated, I went to the military. So enlisted in 2003. It was after the Iraq War and everything had just come around, and kind of that call to service drew me out. I became a medic. The GI Bill paid for me to get my graduate degree in public health. So that really started teaching me about population studies. So I started looking at how do things work and how is government working in the background. And it's been this eye-opening experience that there's a lot that happens at the local level. There's a lot that we can impact and change if we're really paying attention at the very base level of these Senate districts and these cities, townships, and everything else. So I'm feeling that call to service again and really jumping in and going for it this year. So I'm excited.
Very good. Chad, what about you? What is your background? You've had the seat before.
Yeah, 2016, won a special election, so I served in 2016. So won an election in 2016, but then lost an election in 2016. It was an interesting year, probably best year of my life though. So learned a lot, learned how politics more works at the House, how bills get passed, things like that. So it got me really excited to run again, I think because I was there. And then I've been out for a while, and you could kind of see what happens at a neighborhood level more when you're not in, and see what happens. Because I think when you're at the Capitol, that's the world that you live in, is at the Capitol. And when you're back in the district, people don't know a lot what is going on, at the state Capitol and the national Capitol. So I think it was really good for me to take these 2 years and really see what's going on and listen and kind of, hear what's going on. So
these districts get a little bit weird in the Southwest Metro. What is the geographical kind of breakdown between 50A and 50B?
So my district goes from Old Cedar to Columbus Avenue. It's everything north of 86th Street. And then from Columbus to France Avenue, everything north of 90th. So that's my zone in Bloomington. And then I also have a portion of Richfield. And
yeah, so I have by the Mall of America, and then everything south that she said over to Columbus, south over to France, and then at France it cuts down to 98th Street and goes over to Normandale, and then south. So south, central, Bloomington.
It's important for people to remember as they go to the ballot box. And both of you in November, neither one of you have a primary that we should be concerned about or paying attention to.
Primary. Yep.
What are some issues specifically in Bloomington that you guys care about, or as you door knock are kind of talking about with people who have the chance to vote for you in November?
The biggest one for me has been taxes and regulations. Bloomington is one of the heaviest regulated cities, especially in the metro area and South Metro specifically. But you have these things where government's telling you how to run your life and taking decisions away from you and turning them into utilities left and right. And we have plenty of people who don't like that. They want to have more say, and this should be a lot more about freedoms and decisions and kind of making your own fate. So going along with that goes to the taxation, where last year Bloomington got hit hard, and so did Richfield with taxes, between state, county, city, and school board, and every entity saying it's just a little bit, it's just a couple percent, it's not that bad.
Yeah.
Well, when you multiply that by 4 different organizations that are taxing you at just a little bit, it adds up really quickly. And I'm feeling the hurt on that, and I know tons of other residents are. So I think the state can set the standard of no more taxes for now. Let's take a look and really see what we can do with the money we have, see if we can generate revenue somewhere else for people, and then build from there. So.
And with the federal tax bill, we need to really kind of fall in line with a lot of the provisions in that. And I think Bloomington, especially considering the property taxes in Bloomington, and Hennepin County at large, state and local taxes don't mean what they used to mean.
Exactly.
And we kind of need to fall in line with that. Chad, are you encountering anything different as you talk to voters?
So just in the district, I'm not hearing a ton of this necessarily at the doors, because I think people talk about bigger issues, but along with taxes. So I do rental property in Bloomington. Last year alone, the property taxes at apartments went up $15 per month per apartment. So just to keep up, I need to raise...
Say that one more time.
$15 a month per apartment.
Okay.
So if I want to stay level, I need to send everybody a $15 a month rent increase just to cover the real estate taxes. And then you talk about the franchise fees. You had talked about that $3.50 on their electric bill. City of Bloomington raised water, and they got the 2-tier system. So a lot of times these apartments hit the second tier. So the people that maybe the elderly that are one person in an apartment, they are getting hit with that higher percentage. And a lot of times these apartments are just taking that water bill, dividing it by how many people. So these unintended consequences of these raising of taxes are hurting people when we talk about affordable housing, and the taxes are kind of pushing people up. And I don't like to raise rent because I see these people. I see them every day. I see them at the grocery store, the gas station. My kids go to school with them. So I don't want to raise them. But when I get a $15 a month tax bill that's higher, that happens. That's got to happen. And then other issues, like you said, I think listening. I think the last couple of days I've just kind of thought we need to listen. The politicians need to listen to the people. In Bloomington Bloomington doesn't allow Airbnb, and there's a big group of people that want to do the Airbnb, and not to make a lot of money. They just want to make their house payment. It's a family of 4 that rents out their basement once in a while, and they just said this helps us make our mortgage payment, and they can't do that. And then the bike path down on the river bottoms, the state language says it must be paved. We don't leave this up to the people that make the path. We just say this. And there's a lot of people up in arms about those things. So I think just listening. I think the politicians need to step back. Instead of saying, this is what's important to me, just say, tell me what's important to you.
More generally, a lot of the city-specific issues are controlled at the city level. Do you guys see any path that you can carve out in the legislature? The one issue, that I think about was the overhaul on the trash collection. So basically saying that if you're a private trash collection vendor, we're going to divvy out territory and then assign it to you because we're the government and we get to say what happens. That was rammed through in so many different senses of that phrase, rammed through. Running for a state legislature, I'm interested what the solution might be, because both of you are running for state house. You're not running for city council. You're not running for, city planner, anything like that. Do you happen to know of any solutions that you could pursue at the legislature to kind of rein in some of those really burdensome city regulations?
Yeah. I had a bill in for the trash. It did get through one committee, but just didn't have enough time then to pass it and didn't get back to keep working on it. But it just said the state was going to step back and say the cities can't do this right now. We got to step back and see what is going to happen, kind of just put a halt on it. I'd like the cities to be able to decide, so it's kind of hard of the state kind of overreaching and saying the cities, we don't. But in this case, I just saw how it affected people in Bloomington. And that's in committees, that's what I got. People would say, other representatives on both sides of the aisle, like, I get it. Because I had people that came and testified and said, we understand this is a huge deal in Bloomington. And they said, like, if we can get it just in Bloomington, we might think about it. But, there's a lot of cities that we don't want to say that to. So it is hard at the state level. They understood what we were talking about, but didn't want to go statewide. Some of them didn't want to go statewide with it.
Okay.
And I think it's not even about banning it necessarily, but just having a vote and that feeling listened to again, where a lot of residents are like, have it or don't, but at least let us have a say in it, versus the rammed through. So it's the fact that there wasn't a vote. So if I were to kind of set any precedent for cities, it would be have a vote on these things that do affect everybody. And when the people are demanding this and when it's not something that's unanimous, put things to a vote and give people a say and feel listened to again. So I think that's a big part of it. Another part is just being the example. Part of why I'm running for state rather than city is so that these kind of regulations don't go statewide. Because
Right.
again, even just, Bloomington and Richfield are very small grid towns where they can ram these things through, they can make them happen. But then you're talking about at the state level where the metro's notorious for thinking that they know what's best for everybody else.
Right.
So to try to put a stop to that and be the voice of reason and say, hey, actually, this would be really difficult to enforce when you get 4 hours north of here or when you do anything else. So I think part of it's being an example and talking about transparency and really educating people on who makes these decisions. There's still people who aren't sure who
Right.
really pushed this through. It was at the city level, but they can blame the state, they can blame county, they're not sure who to talk to. So I think just educating people and being more forward and open about that too.
No doubt. You both are endorsed Republican candidates for your respective seats. Why are you a Republican? What is that? Because in many ways, people are losing what that word might mean or have a different perception of why that what that word means. I'm just interested to know philosophically what has led you to a place where you buy into more of a conservative philosophy.
I think my journey through Republicanism has been kind of interesting. I was a Rush baby Republican, where my earliest memories are in the backyard, both my parents listening to Rush Limbaugh on a summer day, and his intro music still kind of brings me back to that, and I enjoy it. I was very Republican, very conservative through high school and college, which is not always easy at those ages. And I kind of, I struggled as the Republican Party started, doing their overreach and doing higher spending, doing all the things that I felt like conservatives are against. I fell apart for a while where I went to the libertarian movement, and that gave me a lot of new perspectives of like, what does it mean to be conservative and to be truly low government, low taxes, low cost. I took that because, the Libertarian Party, as nice as they were and as wonderful the people I met, the organization wasn't quite there. So I took those ideas and I'm bringing them back to the Republican Party. And I think that's a big part of why I'm running is I have a lot of people who say, oh, that sounds like a Democrat idea, where it's about leaving people alone or it's about getting out of people's lives. I'm much more conservative than I am Republican, but I do think that the Republican Party still identifies the most with these issues and with conservatism and the things that matter in government of just taxes and regulations. So that's where I've landed today. Yeah.
Chad, what about you? You and I have had a couple of conversations off air about your time at the legislature and how hard it can be to work within a caucus system. And that sometimes you felt like the odd man out in some cases. Why are you running as a Republican, or why do you identify that way?
I think the biggest thing is pro-business, keep spending down, and I think spending it wisely. I mean, have a effective government, not just a big government. So we need to spend money where we need to spend money. We need to tax. We need to have taxes. We need to have things come in to support the programs. But spending it wisely is the biggest thing for me. And I think that's a big thing. That's a big thing for me.
Did you always identify as you ran as a Republican in the special election that you had? Did you always identify that way, or what led you to a path of being pro-business or a little bit more fiscally conservative?
I think growing up to just having kind of a business background. I bought a rental property when I was 16 and saw the finances and saw if I could switch my garbage hauler and save $10, it was $10. And if I could cut something and save $1, it was $1, and I could keep the rent lower for other people. So I think kind of growing up that way.
I'm interested for you both. It seems to me in 2016, basically this Donald Trump bomb just hit the country and flipped everything on its head and changed the way that we interact and have civil discourse and campaign, because a lot of what he did and almost winning the state of Minnesota paved the way for, I think, the philosophy of a lot of candidates who are running either statewide or for their House districts. What, if anything, as you guys campaign and as you door knock and as you do different marketing efforts, did 2016 influence you at all for what you're doing right now in 2018 as a candidate that may have been different prior to 2016?
For me, absolutely. A lot of people know that this is the election where a lot of women are stepping forward. So that there's all these news articles coming out and these big features about the Democrat women who are running. And there's not a lot about Republican women, but we're running for the same reasons of just, it's that having a big voice and it's the standing up for yourself and stop being a pawn. Part of what Donald Trump did was that he brought real people up rather than pointing to them and doing the typical politician line of, oh, this single mother in Richfield, Minnesota. No, I'm the single mother in Richfield, Minnesota. I want to have my own voice, and I want to be in those legislative meetings behind closed doors. I don't want to be just on the podium or just pointed to in a crowd.
Right.
So I think that by him really, giving people a voice and letting people stand up has influenced me to say, oh, I could stand up too. I could have a voice, and I don't have to go through the whole process of do your time and earn your way, make your friends, have the big political connections.
Yes.
You can jump in and you can do it, and you can do it effectively and smartly. So,
And that is a fascinating point that you bring up, because beyond just the straw man of single mom, struggling, et cetera, you are those things, Kirsten, but you don't fit that caricature of what they perceive your what you should care about politically. I'm always fascinated when the left and when Democrats kind of prop this thing up about women's issues. Well, if we're not viewing this myopically, what is a woman's issue? Because you're talking to me, the first two things you said were taxes and regulations. I'm led to believe that you care about abortion. You care a lot about it. That's the only thing you care about, right? I mean, I'm curious as to where that comes from and why we prop that up.
Again, it's the loud minority. So again, it is the loudest voice, and it's where the funding comes from. So again, like when I'm trying to look for help, from Women Winning, for example, is one of the organizations that really gives women a voice in politics. But they're a pro-choice organization, and they're very much focused on the Democrat or left-leaning candidates. So they're not even giving me a voice. They're not giving me money. They're not giving me the interns and the support or anything else. Nobody asked me for an organization called Women Winning what I actually would want to win with. So it's this misleading thing, and there are a lot of us. There are a lot of women who are taxes, regulations, and really smart other factors that aren't just about women's issues necessarily. But at the same time, that is still a benefit that I can talk about those, personally.
Certainly.
And bring them to the legislature rather than having men saying, well, my wife says, well, my sister says, and having that voice. And I think that's something that the Republican Party should do a little bit better, is that this isn't identity politics. Don't vote for me just because I'm a girl, which I think is common on the other side. But it is important, and my background and my experiences are something that should be carried and should be amplified more in the House. So hopefully we start seeing that. We do start taking advantage of that, of the things that make each of our candidates unique, and letting them be representative of a bigger population in the state.
And then, Chad, for you, obviously running in 2016, I'm interested both on your campaign level and then on a broader scale. What did you learn from that campaign? Understanding that you won a special election, then you lost in the general election that everybody was being voted in on. What do you take from that 2016 experience into 2018?
Yeah, I go back to listening again. It's interesting to me that it seems like the country's divided, Republican and Democrat. And because you're Republican, you think one way, and because you're a Democrat, you think the other way. And when you say affordable health care, if you're a Democrat, you mean one thing. And if you say, well, I want affordable health care as a Republican, I mean one thing. So I think coming together and knowing that the term means something, maybe of the way that we get there, but just saying, yes, we do need affordable health care. You are right. Let's sit down and let's figure out how to do it. Because we all should agree that we need better schools. We all should agree that we need affordable housing. We all agree that we need affordable health care. But sometimes those terms, I think, are so, you think of something, and if you're on one side, you think this is the answer, and the other, and it just kind of goes both ways. So I think just having those conversations of when if they're a Democrat and say we need affordable health care, then saying, yeah, you're right, we do. Instead of saying, no, because I think they're going to say we want universal health care. No, let's talk about affordable health care. Those are the terms you're using. Let's talk about it.
Right.
And having those conversations, because I go, and I'm sure it happens for both sides. I'm sure if a Democrat goes to a Republican's door and they say, what are you? And they say Democrat, I'm sure the Republican says, get away. But I get that a lot as a Republican to a Democrat, to the point of people put their hands back, literally, and say, I don't want any of your literature. I don't really want to talk right now. And it's like, we talk about a country as compromising, coming together, compromise, listening. But yet when you have the voters that are saying, oh, you're a Republican, please stay away, you can't even start that dialogue. So I think going into it, knowing that people are putting their hands up and saying, look, what's important to you? I don't want to tell you what's important to me. What's important to you, and kind of working from there. So I think it has softened my of non-confrontational and more like, hey, I'm here to represent people, have my door open, what's important, and let's discuss it.
I'm interested because that is a good point. There's always this balance, this ebb and flow of, like you say, kind of building bridges and then also advancing an agenda that you believe in. It's why we try to win elections. It's why we try to advance causes that we care about. What is that balance? How much are you a bridge builder versus how much are you interested in just electorally crushing your opponents?
Yeah, I mean, we had talked about, I've been in Bloomington most of my life. I went to Betty's Nursery School over by Kelly Park that used to be my elementary school, which was Riverside at the time. So I see everybody, I see people, I see, I knock on doors and I played hockey with their kid. So I'm not here to make people mad. I'm here to say, we both agree that this needs to happen, and let me tell you my way. Let's say your way, because someone might. I mean, there's a quick way. My hand hurts. I'm bleeding. Okay, let's just cut it off, and then it won't hurt anymore. That's a way to take care of it. Or you can say, let's put a Band-Aid on it. So I think sometimes just very calmly sitting down and saying, this is what I think. Because I had that at the house. I mean, I had a lot of good conversations with Democrats. I played in a hockey league Sunday nights, and we were hockey players. We weren't politicians. We weren't Republican. We weren't Democrat. I was playing hockey with Phyllis Kahn.
What?
Yeah. She was skating with
Okay.
us. Yeah, and then we went out and had pizza afterwards. And it's those types of relationships like, hey, we're hockey players. Let's talk about this. And that's what needs to happen, rather than I say a keyword and you're this way, I see a keyword and you're that way. So I think just not going into a situation, and I think sometimes politicians do that, and there's some districts that you can do that. If you're in a really blue district, you can just say it one way. If you're a really red district, but kind of in Bloomington and Richfield, we all want, most of the time we want very similar stuff. We just have a different way to get to it.
And Kirsten, very similar. I mean, you have both a background and experience and a strong set of beliefs that wouldn't cater to I am part of the Republican Party platform. How much do you see your role in this campaign, and as you're going door to door and that kind of thing, as someone who's building bridges versus somebody who's holding to a very strong set of beliefs? Are you usually looking to engage with the person and throw out your agenda, or what is the balance that you kind of find in a city like Bloomington, where we're at least a light blue city?
I think it's just about, my motto in this election has been conservatism through kindness. So I'm always saying it with a smile, and I'm always explaining things in a good way. I would say I'm a bridge builder because I'm showing up at meetings where people don't expect me to show up. So like in Richfield, I've joined the social justice movement. So I'm learning a ton about the issues that matter a lot to generally very far left voters. But then the ability, or the opportunity for me to explain, I agree and I want the same thing. Like for example, immigration, of splitting babies at the border is sad and devastating. These pictures are horrible to watch. And then to be the Republican voice that says, I agree, and I think that we need to end it. I think there's another way to do that, though. So not just the, immediately let everyone go, let's scream at Trump, let's, solve it that way. I'm giving different solutions where I'm saying, I agree with you, and we both want the same outcome. I'm just coming from a different angle, just like Chad said, it's telling them that I agree, I'm with you too. I want less police violence. I want better schools. I want all of these things. I'm telling you that here's my perspective, and educating people. And what that's done is really made people see, oh, Republicans aren't heartless monsters who wish the worst on everyone. You do care.
Baby steps, right?
Yeah, exactly. But I've had I've made friends now in these groups from people who likely lost a lot of their Republican friends in the 2016 election. And I am building those bridges, and I am talking, and it's not necessarily that they'll vote for me, but at least they're listening and they're defending me to say she's not that bad and she's got some good ideas. So I think that's kind of my role. And again, I would want to take that statewide and go even bigger with it, and hopefully across the aisle, and hopefully with other Republicans who are the same way as me, of just we can really work together without compromising our conservative values.
Are you hearing anything from voters right now and what they are concerned about that surprises you? Is there any issue out there right now that we might not traditionally think of as either a Republican or Democrat issue, or is there a general theme that's happening at the door right now? I know in 2016, a lot of people were concerned about the national scene and what was happening at with the presidential election. We don't have that this time around. So I'm just curious if there is any specific issue that you guys have heard that have made you go, whoa, that's not in my wheelhouse, or I'd have to look at that, or anything along those lines?
For Republicans, for me, it's been the governor race. So that's been a big thing of, it's coming up in 10 days, a couple weeks. Of, again, asking really, what are your thoughts on this? And what do you think of these people? And then same thing on the Democrats, where they also have a kind of contentious primary coming up. So it is the, explaining to people, that's not my influence level. I'd be happy to work with whoever's there. And you strike this balance of, I'm not taking sides, or, I don't want to say one way or the other, but I do have my strong feelings on it. I do have things to say. I do have ideas about it. So that's been one that kind of caught me off guard a couple times on both ends. So,
Chad, anything unorthodox at the door these days?
I think all politics is local a little bit, or a lot. I think what I've heard is, and I've met with some people, just the term "let the people decide." I think, and once again back to my listening, of the different city issues that we've had, the garbage issue, the trail issue, the Airbnb issue, all of these things of, are you listening to me? And all of those issues that I just talked about are not Democrat or Republican. Are you listening to what we're saying? Do we have say in this? I know we elect you, but so I think it's the let the people decide of listening and taking their concerns, and going with them.
Versus trying to prescribe what their concerns should be.
Yeah, and that's the thing. We had talked about coming at a certain thing from two different directions and saying this is what I think and this is what I think. And I hate to hit the garbage thing over and over and over again, but I knew it very well because it was a huge deal in the special election. But there was a memo that went out in 2014 to the city council that said it won't improve, it won't help wear and tear, it's not going to increase safety, prices aren't going to go down, and it's not going to decrease pollution. I mean, you take a couple trucks off the road, yes, it will decrease pollution just like if you got rid of your car. But you go on the city's website and it said all of those things that it would do. So they were pushing what they wanted, but using the wrong facts. I understand it. I understand that people wanted one truck going into their circle. Totally understand it. And if that's the way they pushed it, that would be, I would understand that. But really listening is, I've been hearing that at the door, and people have said that why should I talk to you? People don't listen.
Very good.
So.
Yeah. Kirsten, how can people find out more about your campaign and get involved?
I'm all over social media. So again, I'm very meet people where they are. So I'm really trying to get involved at the younger levels. I'm technically a millennial, so it's very much the internet social media. So KirstenForHouse.com, and that's Kirsten number 4 house. And then all the sites, Facebook.com/Kirsten number 4 house, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, all the areas where you can see me. I'm most active on Facebook because that's my generation and what we do. But find me any of those places. Otherwise, I am all over town. I'm in a bright blue shirt with my name on it. So say hey and talk to me too if you see me. Yeah.
Chad, what about you? How can we get involved?
Yeah, I would say I'll meet you at the doors. Hopefully I hit everybody's house. My website, Chad for House, FOR House. But I would say just shoot an email, phone call. I've gotten a lot of good phone calls and emails with questions. So that's what I want. I don't want people, and I tell people at the door, because people usually don't want to say. And I said, here's my card. Please call or ask questions, no matter what it is. And usually that softens it, so maybe they'll answer the question right there. But I want you to know, and I want you to know who I am. And so I would say call, email, chadforhouse.com, gives that information.
Very good. Kirsten Johnson, 50A, Chad Anderson, 50B. Thank you both for joining the Republican Roundtable today.
Thanks,
Thanks, Max.
This has been the Republican Roundtable. I'm your host, Max Reimer. Until next time.